The long journey back to the unnamed moment. What cannot be divided must be reaggregated. The foundational axiom of the modern educational system, that knowledge must be compartmentalized into disciplines for effective transmission and specialization, contains an obvious paradox. It promises an infinite cognition of the world, yet only at the cost of sacrificing the world's integrity. This paradox faithfully reproduces the predominant attitude of human intellectual development. We ought to divide the disciplines because we cannot master the whole. The explosive growth of knowledge has rendered the Renaissance-style polymath an impossible myth, and so we retreat with a clear conscience behind our respective disciplinary bulwarks. A biologist need not be versed in string theory, nor does a historian need to understand the weights of a neural network. We proclaim this to be progress, efficiency, the only rational survival strategy for the human mind in the face of infinite information. This strategy, however, is precisely the path toward a more profound ignorance. As Wittgenstein's first famous proposition suggests, the world is the totality of facts, not of things. The more finely we partition the facts, the more distant we become from the world as a whole. The division of disciplines is purportedly based on objective differences in their objects and methods of study. Physics deals with matter and energy, abiding by the laws of experiment and mathematics. Sociology focuses on human groups, employing the methods of statistics and fieldwork. This system of classification appears unassailable, yet it omits the most crucial link. All these objects and methods originate from the unified, fundamental great questions that humanity first posed when confronting the world. Before the word physics was born, people asked, "What is the nature of being?" Before psychology was invented, they puzzled, "What are the soul and the mind?" The establishment of disciplines is, in essence, a bureaucratic processing of these primordial questions. It transforms a living, captivating mystery into a set of standardized procedures and an archivable report. Just as Jorge Semprún argued that for the trauma of Auschwitz, a prosaic documentary report is far more impossible than poetic fiction because it attempts to neutralize an unorderable horror with an orderly arrangement of facts, so too does our disciplinary system, by slicing the world into documents of discrete knowledge points, neutralize the holistic, tremendous impact of knowledge at its genesis. It conceals a loss of the whole with the precision of partial truths. The advent of artificial intelligence, AI, offers us an opportunity to reverse this trend. In a near divine manner, it assumes the role of the polymath we had long abandoned. AI can effortlessly master and correlate the factual knowledge of all disciplines. It can become the perfect author of documentary reports. When machines take on the labor of deep mining and information processing within prescribed tracks, the human mind is liberated from this specialized servitude. This does not mean that humanity will become idle. On the contrary, it compels us to return to a higher order intellectual activity, questioning, not posing a problem awaiting a solution within a specific disciplinary framework, but raising those great questions that transcend all barriers and define the human condition. We may, with the aid of AI, return to a knowledge landscape centered on questions. As Lacan put it, truth has the structure of a fiction. If disciplinary education is an attempt to construct a real order of knowledge, then the return to the question, assisted by AI, is an acknowledgement of the fictitious nature of this order itself, and a courageous entry into an arena constructed by a grander, more authentic fiction, that of the eternal philosophical questions. So, what are these great questions? They are nothing new, but are ancient specters reappearing before us in a spiraling ascent. What is consciousness? This question cannot be answered solely by neuroscience's electroencephalograms, computer science's algorithms, or philosophy's thought experiments. It demands that all three, and perhaps also art, literature, and theology, collaboratively weave a web of understanding. AI can simulate every impulse of a neural network, but the essence of the subjective experience, qualia, of sensing, read itself, remains suspended above all empirical data. It is a domain that shows itself but cannot be said, just as Wittgenstein described logical form. What is a just society? This question mocks the artificial boundaries between political science, economics, law, and sociology. A perfect economic model might lead to a societal ethical abyss. A juridically flawless system might inflict widespread human suffering. We can no longer pretend these domains can operate in isolation. AI's powerful simulation capabilities can present us with hundreds of millions of possible futures under different policy combinations. But the choice of which future to pursue, the value judgment in weighing freedom against security, efficiency against fairness, ultimately throws us back to the entrance of Plato's cave, demanding that we confront the idea of the good itself. This return is unavoidably a return to philosophy. In that primordial moment, before knowledge was named, Aristotle's inquiries spanned what we now call physics, biology, logic, ethics, and politics. To him, these were not independent disciplines, but different dimensions of an inquiry into being qua being, all serving the same purpose: to understand the world and humanity's place within it. What we call physics today stems from his work Physis, Natural Philosophy, while metaphysics arose merely because that collection of texts was placed after meta, the physics in the library. This accidental physical location later evolved into an insurmountable chasm between two disciplines, a brilliant Hegelian irony in itself, where contingency is mistaken for essence, thereby shaping historical necessity. Now, with the assistance of AI, we have the prospect of shattering this historical misreading and returning to that moment when everything was interconnected and fluid. AI is like a tireless librarian that can instantly organize the books of all disciplines and reveal their myriad hidden connections, thereby allowing us readers the freedom to roam among grand themes like being, consciousness, justice, and beauty without fear of getting lost by a specific call number. This return is not without its price, nor is it a bucolic nostalgia. It forces us to confront the traumatic kernel of knowledge, the inexhaustibility and inherent contradictions of the world itself. The specialized disciplinary system is, to some extent, a defense mechanism, alleviating our epistemological anxiety by cutting the infinite unknown into finite, knowable pieces. When we once again face the great questions, we are once again exposed to this fundamental anxiety. This is like Semprun's narrator in the boxcar en route to Buchenwald, whose consciousness leaps erratically between past, present, and future. The collapse of linear time is a symptom of a traumatized subject no longer able to experience life as a coherent narrative. Similarly, when we abandon the linear narrative of disciplinary progress and instead embrace the networked, synchronous structure of questions, we too enter an intellectually post-traumatic state. The past mythical narratives of the cosmos, the present scientific narratives of molecules, and the future cyber narratives of the singularity are no longer successive stages but are sheets of time that present themselves to us simultaneously, interacting and colliding, like the protagonist lost in time in Alain Resnais's film Je t'aime, Je t'aime. Our collaboration with AI, this new cognitive form, must itself reflect this trauma. An ideal mode of collaboration is by no means a simple division of labor where humans ask and AI answers. That would only relegate AI to the status of a super search engine and degrade humans to operators of a teleprompter. True collaboration must, in its very form, internalize the difficulty and tension of such cross-boundary thinking. It should be a dialectical process full of misunderstandings, corrections, bursts of inspiration, and dead ends. In this process, human intuition, ethical concern, and aesthetic judgment collide with AI's formidable computation, pattern recognition, and alien perspective. The distortion and falsification produced by this collision are precisely the path to new knowledge. This again echoes Wittgenstein's showing, We cannot directly say the ultimate answer to a transdisciplinary question, but the contours of the answer can nevertheless be shown in the form of our difficult, grammatically flawed dialogue with AI. Ultimately, the predicament we face is strikingly similar to the nightmare Primo Levi had in Auschwitz. In his dream, he survives, returns home, and tells his family about his experiences in the camp. But they grow bored, start to yawn, and one by one leave the table, until finally, Levi is left alone. The survivor's greatest trauma is not the absence of a listener, but the lack of a big other capable of bearing his testimony, a symbolic space that can affirm the reality of his experience. In the post-specialization era, when we attempt to articulate holistic insights that cross boundaries, we face the same predicament of having no big other. The economist will accuse our model of lacking rigor. The philosopher will criticize our concepts for lacking clarity. The artist will mock our expression for lacking grace. Every disciplinary expert can become that yawning, departing family member. We must accept this fact. We are alone. We must think and speak at the risk of being misunderstood by everyone, without any ultimate guarantee. Yet, it is precisely in this state of abandonment that the hope of liberation lies. When there is no longer any single disciplinary big other to provide a guarantee of legitimacy for our knowledge, we attain true intellectual freedom. We no longer write to please an academic community, no longer think to pass a journal's peer review. We think simply because the questions themselves are summoning us. This, perhaps, is the true meaning of returning to the unnamed moment. It is not to erase all existing knowledge and names, but to suspend their authority, allowing us to reclaim a kind of Adamic power, to face a world of infinite possibilities and begin the work of naming anew. On this long and arduous journey, AI is not our Noah's Ark, but the compass we use to chart the unknown seas. The final destination is not to find the answers to all questions, but to learn to coexist with these eternal questions, and to regard this coexistence itself as the most glorious posture of the human mind.